Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how you can use Jasper and Surfer SEO together to write content more efficiently and more optimized for search engines. Now I know what you're thinking. Jasper is an artificial intelligence content writer. Hey, this has got to be something that's too good to be true. Artificial intelligence for writing content. I would have to generally agree with you if you do have the expectation that artificial intelligence will write your content without any work for a human. That's simply not true, right? You can't use a tool like Jasper or any form of artificial intelligence without some form of human input. And so the tool itself will only be as good as the information that the human operating the artificial intelligence operates it. Same thing goes for a computer, right? What you can do is with Jasper, along with other tools, you can write content much faster using artificial intelligence for the data and the semantic language or natural language processing used in the content to write it more efficiently for search engines, and pair it with artificial intelligence to frame your article much faster. I use frame because you should not use Jasper or other artificial intelligence tools to only be your content source. You should use it to your advantage to frame your content and get over that writer's block hump if in case you hit that roadblock, as well as pair it with other data sources to make it smarter or use it to your better advantage. Surfer SEO is a great option to do that because with Surfer, you're going to actually integrate into Jasper directly through their API and their content editor to be able to optimize the article that you want you're writing for the outline, what basically should be talked about within the context of the article, as well as word length, headings, other content structure elements like paragraphs and images as well. To optimize your article and you pair it with Jasper, it can be a really powerful tool. And it's something I do use daily. But at the same time, you do need to have a good user input into the system itself. I'll show you exactly how to do that, and we can see how an article will come together and come to life by using these two powerful tools. Now, let's say you run a travel blog and you want to write an article about something like the best weekend trips from Paris. Okay, it's a low difficulty article. It's generally more searched in France than it would be in the United States. If you run a travel blog, you might have a US audience, you might have a European audience. This is going to be written in English for basically a US audience, but with the opportunity for global reach. What I like doing is running that keyword that I'm targeting in any given article, or listicle, if you will, in this instance, and run it through Ahrefs, view all the keyword ideas. I like exporting the results from Keyword Explorer and Ahrefs. And if you don't have Ahrefs, there's other sources you can use. You can use Google itself. You can use Google Search Planner. And another tool is Key Search. That's another good one. But I like Ahrefs. It's the most robust for content idea generation and based on keyword difficulty, and also for building and deploying your content strategy. What I like doing, so it's just a simple formula. It's concatenating these keywords by placing a comma at the end. Change the encoding to the CSV file to have a comma at the end as well, and that would also work. But what we're going to do is basically put these keywords, I think, are all relevant, but they're also subtopics of the general target keyword, which is weekend trips from Paris. But these are all subtopics that are maybe more specific, like by taking a weekend trip by train, something to other countries outside of France, the easiest ones, the longest ones, short, all of the above, right? And I want to place those into my content editor in Surfer first. And what the content editor in Surfer SEO does is basically will output a framework, words and terminology to use, as well as headers and all of those content structure elements I outlined before. And so I will pull up Surfer SEO and the content editor itself, where you input your keywords. You can input up to 20. I like setting a crawler type to mobile, US audience. and we'll go back to this spreadsheet. Here's the list now with the commas. Makes it easy to just copy and paste directly into here. We have a list of, basically all of our 16 different keywords related to our target keyword. I'm going to simply click Create Content Editor. Now we'll let that run, and that will process basically our outline that we will use in Jasper. So while that runs, let's go over to Jasper. So now what Jasper has, we'll go over into Jasper's. Once we click into our dashboard and log in, we have this option called Recipes. Now in Recipes, there's various community-driven recipes. There's recipes that you can create on your own, but basically these are a set of commands that you can use to your advantage to frame your article in a much more efficient way. And so what I'll go ahead and do is run my listicle, because this is a listicle article, to then we'll run a listicle recipe to then frame this article before we've integrated into Surfer. I like doing this because we're using two different data sources and what comes up in those data sources to then make a better article. So what I like doing is put in the title. It's going to be, we don't have a number yet, but basically best weekend trips from Paris, France. I like inputting second person expert friend as my voice on the topic. It's going to be to learn about the best trips from Paris. Audience, if you run a travel site, I'm just going to have travelers. I like actually just putting this in on my own into the H2. I don't like overthinking the H1. I don't like overthinking the H1 and just keep it simple, but I like including a number to at least give Jasper the ability to understand the number that we're sort of targeting, and it helps kind of come up with that framework a bit more. If you don't have a number, you might end up only having 7, or I like kind of guiding it, because the way Jasper works the best and the way that you can guide AI the best is giving that repetitive sequencing to go off of. If you don't have that repetitive sequencing, the artificial intelligence is really going to get confused and lost into the data. So here's a Jasper command that you basically run this caret, and you say, write an interesting introduction to an article about the H1 that hooks in travelers, and you just hit Command Enter. And this gets our first paragraph. Explain why learning about this. Okay, and then let's talk about what this will cover. And I'm going to let this run. This last sentence, in addition, so I think it misunderstood sort of what I wanted. I actually wanted a statistic. I'm going to hit Command J, which basically is the compose option within Jasper that just basically continues writing, and it uses backward-looking content to then extrapolate forward-looking statements, right? So I'm going to hit Command J again. So there we go. Now it's on a roll, right? And I want to remove this sentence because I just don't think that's a little bit of a weird statement. I kind of like this fact. It's a little dated, so we might want to consider, right, if you're going through the content, to refresh this, right, when it's ready for publishing. Keep Grammarly on. It's a great feature. You can enable it as well as use a plagiarism checker. But now that we got on a nice roll, this is giving Jasper an outline to go off of. So I'm going to continue to hit Command J and see now this built the outline. And then now it's talking about those places that are mentioned within the outline. And so now, since it's on a nice roll, I'm just going to let this go and continue to just let Command J do its thing. And it's writing nice descriptions for each place. Or decent, right? It has a nice framework. It talks about like the population and then includes landmarks, right? It's a little bit sort of templated, but I'd rather have it be guided with these sentences. And you have to think about each component of a sentence to, its own guide to the artificial intelligence tool. So basically you could use one sentence to then do a number of different sub outlines beyond that to expand on that one sentence. And then, right. So as long as you have like 2 to 3 sentences of framework to go off of, you're going to be in good shape. So I'm going to go through and let this run, and we'll come back to it. So now we've built out all of the paragraphs relating to the outline for this article using the command button in Jasper. And we have a nice block description in consistency with the outline of locations for this topic. What I like to do then is, rather than directly hooking the Surfer SEO content editor directly into this content editor right now, I individually review the content editor in Surfer. This is a content editor. It looks very, somewhat similar to Jasper, but this is slightly different. But this is the Surfer SEO content editor that provides different content scoring for SEO optimization based off of structure, the terms used for natural language processing, including the number of terms or keywords used within the context of the article, broken down by a variety of things, as well as your brief section, so outline builder, so how to sort of frame your article. This is a longer article. As you can see, the requirements call for about 4,400 words to 5,000 words, along with at least 37 to 62 headings, and at least 26 to 59 images and 123 paragraphs. So a very long article. We already have a decent amount of content. We have about 1,000. We're a quarter of the way there with the Jasper outline that we used. And now we have different options. And so this is why a listicle is very powerful to be used in both Surfer and Jasper, and using a number of keywords in your content editor, using as many as possible, and also targeting topics that actually are somewhat difficult or have been written about a number of times. By doing that, you're going to have more data points within the way the Surfer SEO content editor works. You're going to be able to pull in a very straightforward outline. Look at all these different options in which we can include in the piece. I mean, it gives us a lot of versatility in where we can go with this, because we have one outline that's different, a different source, which is Jasper, and that's just completely AI written outline. Now we have an SEO outline. Let's bring them together. But before we hook into Jasper's content editor, we should just do this directly in here and pick and choose what's mentioned in the outline, but not necessarily mentioned here. And what I like doing is bringing in, so a few options would be London. We had all France locations. What I'm going to target is anything that's not France. And I think what we're going to do is break it out by either places to go in different countries or within France. And then I like Heidelberg, so we're at about 10. Let's see where we're at in content length. We got another 840 words. What's incredibly powerful then is all the content that's pasted in through the outline section is unique content. You'll scan through and you'll see, the content is pretty good. This one's pretty good right here. This is all unique content. You also find that some could have, an improvement in terms of the content itself. There might be, some kind of grammar errors, or it might bring in odd information. And so what I like doing then, now we'll start framing our document. These are all places within France. We now want to do an H2 of best weekend trips from Paris to other countries. This will be an H2. And then Frankfurt, this trip to Frankfurt, Germany will be an H3 for me. And now we have this paragraph generator, which is a new feature as of this video that we can use to then run this through the paragraph generator to sort of clean up the unique content that was generated by Surfer. It only limits you to 600 words at the current moment, but that's okay. What we'll do is we'll do Paris to Frankfurt, Germany, to Frankfurt by train. Let's let that run 3 different options. And in the meantime, while that's running, I just like keeping them separate for the time being, and then we're going to hook it back in. But since it's separate, I would almost view this. We use 3 stars above it to prevent Jasper doing a look back. I like viewing this as almost a separate article, right? You need to guide the AI to be able to use sections as their own independent articles in a way to really write good long form content. What I'll do is expand upon, I'll do write. Now I'll do write a content outline of this is another way, right? Is we're going to get a somewhat different structure because it's kind of thinking about it as its own outline. But I do like this intro a little bit better. Okay, so now here we go. We have a handful of new destinations to consider as part of this outline. These are tips for traveling on a budget. And what I'm going to do is I like these tips as potentially a filler or an addition to help frame the content at the bottom. After we get into sort of the listicle, these can be great great tips to include to make the article a bit more thorough. So now we have a handful of other places. So we've run this through, and now you can see we have a much longer kind of framework of an article, or a description for that listicle. And then I'm going to proceed, since we have this, to fill out our content here. I'm going to bring in all of the rest of these and do the same process between the paragraph generator. So I did this middle one. Let me move some of this. I'm actually going to move this, copy all in here, copy and paste this. What I like doing is sometimes keeping that last sentence, whatever gets cut off in the paragraph generator, doing the reword generator. I'm going to do keyword again, trip to Cologne from Paris, and trip to Cologne by train. Okay. And then so what I'm going to do is finish the rest of these within the paragraph generator. Continue down the line, and we will check back on the status of article and its SEO score. Okay, now that I've brought in all of the descriptions from Surfer for places to visit for a weekend trip from Paris outside of France, I ran all of those through the paragraph generator to expand on that section. Now I have a nice framework of both places to visit outside of France in other countries, as well as now, remember, we have the existing content from the Jasper outline on places to visit within France for a weekend trip. And so we do need to go back to those because I would like these to be a little bit more expanded upon and have a little bit more depth to them. But in addition to that, now is a good time, since we have a good framework for the article and the piece itself. It needs to be a long piece, right? I think we saw earlier it was about 4,400 words. We're at 2,800. I mean, that's a very good start in a very little amount of time. And what we'll need to do now is, I like having this framework set up to then hook in the actual Surfer SEO content editor and scoring to really make the tweaks to bring this into a fully optimized score. What you do is you click the SEO mode, ensure that you are fully logged into your Surfer SEO account. Pull up your content editor that you generated for this topic. You click through, and that will hook in your score. And it looks like it's obviously stale information right now. All we need to do is just refresh by doing it simple. We're at 47, so we have plenty of optimization that we can still do to the article to make it. But what I like doing is then now we have a framework of all these different places within France. We have the header Now we can expand upon these paragraphs. So expand upon a weekend getaway to Lyon, the context of why it's important to travelers. What I'm going to do is bring this one down because we're going to likely repeat this. Let's see what this generates. This is okay. I think it's just sort of took what I had here before and then reworded it. I think there's a little bit more that we can do. We've covered this, but we haven't really covered these historical memories in this new paragraph. So what we do is take this sentence, remove the old paragraph, go back into this the paragraph generator, which will expand on these different exact landmarks. Pick some of those. And then what I'm going to do is try something different for this section, the new section. And now it's established a pattern, right, with sequencing of what we've done before. So for this section, right, it has a sequencing pattern of Lyon to go off of. Now it's doing the same for other locations. And now this is getting into not as good of a pattern. So let's try to replicate the pattern with say. What I'm going to do this time is go into the scoring as presented by Surfer SEO, go to the outline and check for the number of different locations mentioned within the outline here. I like doing variations. Because, as you saw with the Surfer SEO score, we were not using the term weekend getaway. We used weekend trip a number of times, but weekend getaway we should be using, which is basically a similar way or same way to say weekend trip. From here, I think this is getting a good framework. We can now we can try something new and say, what about the best places to stay in? Okay. So now we do have some good options where we've established a pattern with lodging at the bottom, in addition to a description of what makes this place unique and how to get there for a weekend getaway. Continue this pattern, see if we can actual chains, Mercury Hotel, so they could actually be locations. And if they're not, we're going to go through and obviously fact check everything, and we can swap out those actual locations for something that we find on our favorite hotel booking site, as this one is replicating a similar thing. And through this, we'll do the same sort of exercise for the rest of these, and we will check back into how the article looks from here. Okay, I've now filled out the article a bit more in detail by going through each location and running it through the paragraph generator, as well as other Jasper commands to ensure we have robust descriptions of each location within France. We already did the section about locations outside of France. Now, I want to take a pause and take a look at where we're at after doing those two sort of core crux sections of the listicle. We're at 4,300 words, so we're close on meeting our minimum. We're also close on the paragraphs. Images I add in later, and so that's only upside because when we put it into WordPress, the article will then be formatted for additional images. I don't usually put them into here as a site owner. So then going forward, I think this is in a good spot. You'll see that we have some areas where we can tweak, and where we do this is we do it contextually and find different opportunities we can optimize basically the semantic keywords and natural language processing to make for better contextual descriptions. And those are done on a manual basis, right? And so I think here at this word count, we had this section about tips. I don't think it's necessary. per se, but let's kind of finish out what we have here. I like doing a non-look back on a conclusion. So write a key takeaway about the best tourists for and then I'll write a conclusion off of this. And I don't love these tips, so we'll delete that. It's going to hit our word count a little bit, but we're at 4256. There's a certain section here that I really liked in the outline. Here's where I can manually find different opportunities. Let's see, what I like doing is basically a control find for city. Another great way to get some optimization for different keywords. See if we can get a FAQ. You can put 3 stars right above it. Set the Jasper output length to longer, and let's just do a Jasper compose. So now we're above. I like to target somewhere around, let's say, anywhere from above 70, really. And so I think we can get it a little bit higher with further optimization, but I think 71 is a good stopping point to then get this pushed through for images and formatting as well as publishing. But this is largely how you have it, right? Now we have a 4,600 word article in the matter of, around an hour. It took some additional optimization, additional expansion of the content, but really using these 2 tools, really can get me personally over the hump, who's not, a tremendous writer. I like writing. I like conveying messages. Can really get me over the hump of framing an article, outlining an article, and building it in a much faster pace, as well as structuring it in accordance to what's going to perform best for the search intent on that core keyword, which here in this situation is weekend trips from Paris. I can then go through and then further optimize the article, and I really like how Surfer SEO gamifies the whole process of really, optimizing and ensuring it does a good job of having your checks and balances of writing style. So you're not, sometimes something gets grained in your head about using the same wording time and time over again. That can lead to over optimization for any given article. For this, right, you understand, and for idea generation in terms of alternative usage of words, it's right there in front of you. And there's a lot of different things you can do within here of showing just turning off the partially optimized and optimized. So here's only the things that we should be covering. I know that, we talk about wine and Bordeaux. So you can learn about the history of the wine making in the region and predict in some of the best tasting in the world. I think how that went away because we just optimized for it on the left bar there. So you can really filter this down, and you can use it in a lot of different ways if you're trying to, really squeeze out different topics, or you need ideas for things to cover within the actual paragraphs contextually or even headers as well. So that's that. Hopefully you found this helpful. Both Jasper and Surfer SEO can be very powerful, particularly for listicles and even how-to type guides, where you'll have logical step-by-step processes that you can delve into the various headers to build out and frame out an article for SEO. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the YouTube channel by clicking that shiny red button below, and sign up for either Jasper or Surfer by clicking the link in the description below. Cheers.